gone to that within the ambit of your vision, your message, and your intent. Uh, you as a writer has the latitude to create new forms of expression and vocabulary. And you have done so very well, so much. You've done a lot on that head. The worried persons out of your orbit don't understand what you are saying, and therefore the message is lost. For example, the latest word from your WordPress is post-issue. So somebody reading Duane for the first time may ask, what is that word? And so there's some interested readers some readers who may like to know about Duane the Great Writer, or listen to the videos are no problem. So do you think that your particular brand of language, which I may call Duanese, is helping your mission to make known the East in a world lost in tradition, culture, worship, and praying? Duane?
The so-called message, that's interesting. I'm going to make a new word out of that. Yes. And so, again, everything needs to be constantly upgraded, because the old references, and just like what Mike Mason was talking about in the corporation, the different frequencies, all of a sudden you have all these different things going on. And so this too, with the new presentation, we want to take a look at constantly what we're presenting to the world. Yes, we're presenting a lot of things out there to relate to the world. That's the difference. Okay, we're not making statements about the weather, the chemtrails, the HARP, and the government, the law, and all these things. These are things that we simply know about. There's a difference. But when it comes to what I'm referring to, and the words, and yes, I know that people will say, well, what does that word mean? Isness, or what is, the true reality, or etc. What does that mean? Well, this is where, yes, the individual has to explore for themselves, figure it out, and learn to recognize how this is. And so the best part is that as the person does the new you, this is where the new you comes in, because it is the real connection with the isness, the true reality life is. And then from there, the real guides and this reality come into the individual and start to demonstrate, okay? In other words, give hints at. And so it's up to the individual to start to pay attention, just like in school when the teacher says, hey, quit drawing or doodling or talking to your friends, pay attention here. I want to see your face pointed up at the front of the room. And that's the idea, too. It's a matter of attention. And then eventually the individual recognizes their intent. That's a big one. But at first it's rather surfacey and literal. But the new definitions, the new references, okay, these are references, is what they really are. I do define them, but they really are references. I don't really call them new words. I can use that, but they're really references, because everything I write is a reference to the all is. There's just endless ways of approaching it. You can just keep going and going and going. And so everything that's come before, yes, this is where people try to come in and mix it. And I've had confrontations with a few people, and this is their choice, using the new this or the new whatever, okay, their definition of things. And really it's relating to many times like the psychic sciences or whatever. And I've had little talks with them, and I would let them know that, no, this is not what we're doing. This is your idea of things. And this is where things start to become kind of mixed up. So Paul created what he called charged words. And really what he was saying is that these words that he's created, like ek and mahanta and living ekmaster, or whatever else he created a few words here and there, and then talked about the different levels and the sound and whatever. Atma, which was another word for soul, or tazu, or whatever it was, those were his references at that time. Well, since after Paul, when Paul left, it was done. It was all done. After that, it was basically a takeover. But the boys were still there, working with people. They're still there, standing with them for those that were paying attention. And I know it's not easy, of course. But those that did, they did see what was going on. And it's all okay. All of it's okay. It's a good lesson. I was shown to stay there and just go through the process, and it was fine. I was doing certain things in those days, and I had classes, etc. It was all fine until the time was right. And so everything that we're experiencing here on the earth is fine. So these new references that I create, yes, I see this, and because I see them when I'm writing it. So in other words, I just look to the is, and I perceive, okay, what's next? This is the fun part. This is where my real adventures come from, is that I perceive them, and then I write them out. And at the same time as I'm writing, instead of, I can write in the common language, but then it becomes very common. And so I write a particular way because this is how I'm seeing it, and the words that are in the common language do not provide what I'm seeing. And so I'm referencing it the best that I can. So yes, I can say it's awesome, it's wonderful, it's all these things, which we use. But this is really more so on a personal level when I use these words, like we're wonderful worldwide educators, and what we're doing here in the new presentation. This is in the physical, literal sense, all right? But when I write things a certain way, and I use the particular words, sometimes all caps or upper and lower case or whatever, specifying certain things. And if you look through some of Paul's books, he did the same thing. He capitalized certain words, and he did upper and lower case with certain words. He did that too, to specify these, or to highlight them with a little digit on each side, specifically, so that the mind, when people read these things, I look at how also the personal mind reads these things. I take this objective view, and so this is where I highlight things, because for most people, when they're talking or with their personal life, they blend everything in. Again, this is where all the frequencies get screwed up. They don't realize they have 4 other bodies and a real awareness operating these 5 bodies. So what they do is they push all these things together into one personal, one-dimensional view. And so to get the person, get their attention, if they're interested, and this is what the Vessel Project is about too. It's a reference to something else. That's what it is. It's making a statement, like the Statue of Liberty, etc. And when people see the vessel out there, they're going to go, wow, what is that? And so the words are the same. These references that I create into particular words in a particular way, they're to be recognized in their own way. And again, the word perceiving, that is not about perception. That's different. And so is intuition and insight. People have intuition, and it should lead to insight, but it's not your real awareness still. There is a difference. So we take a look at all these steps, but for the most part, before we came into the corporation, it was the idea that, oh, you have a soul, okay, as an example. And so nobody knew what that was. It's a mystery. The God idea was always a mystery. Nobody knew. Most people feared even knowing what God was, you see. So they created the ideas of hope, faith, and belief. When people use these words in a sentence, and they usually don't realize what they're saying, they're really saying, I don't know. So it's like, oh, I believe in this. What they're saying is, I don't know. And it's like, it's a maybe. These are all maybes. Hope is the same thing. You know, they're hoping, people are hoping, oh, I hope this will come out, or I hope this will happen. What they're saying is, I don't know. And faith is the same thing. Oh, I have faith in the Lord or whatever. What they're really saying is, I don't know. But they don't realize that, because these words are maybes. It's not it's not based on real experience. It's based on an idea about an idea. So when people say, oh, I believe in God, okay, the belief is an idea, and then the God thing is an idea. It can't be that, because people don't have actual experience with that. That becomes the difference. They do, but they don't recognize it. They do have experience with their God, their reptilian God, but for the most part, they don't recognize it. They'll just say, no, that's not it. That's the devil. Well, this guy's the same thing. He's a conqueror, is what he is. The Kalam God is a conqueror. He's reptilian. And so that's, and Paul gave the hint in the Talons of Time, when, especially in the artist version, I have a couple of those books of the Talons of Time, which are really cool. It's showing it right there, but people still don't get it. And so when Joni came in, and she was back there with Darwin too, behind the scenes, she was an agent for that. I called her Crone in the book. She was an agent for the Kalam God, because she's reptilian. And anybody can see this on the real side if you look into her eyes. She's a reptilian. But, you know, these aware people in the corporation, they don't see this. So you look at the references that are available. And yes, this is where the individual, you know, decides to wake up all the way and recognize the new nowness now. And this is what I'm presenting with these references. These are the new references that reference the isness. They don't reference other ideas. That becomes the difference. And for the most part, even the so-called God Worlds chart that Paul created was basically literal. He defined it very well in the sounds, and yes, they do exist. And at that time, the all is was agreeable to that. Okay, you know, it in the human state, we think we decide what life is. This is where the world is like it is. Okay, because everybody's deciding, oh, okay, I know what life is. Well, they're really referring to creation and deciding to manipulate creation instead of allowing life to show it what it is and recognizing that. And the perceiving part is learning to, you might say, read what it is, to be able to read it. And it's not the same as we read here, but that's the word that I use. So you have recognition, and it's not just, oh, I know what this is. No, that's not it, because it's an all aliveness, so it's endless. So every successive moment, every nowness that all is now, it is always new. And so that moment that passed, that you experience in time and space, it still is, but it is new now. And so to recognize every successive moment, because there it becomes endless. It's not a matter of just like Buddha sitting under the banyan tree and say, oh, I have enlightenment, okay? And the idea of light and spirit and all this enlightenment stuff, it's really astral. That's the astral knowledge. And when Paul was doing the spiritual exercise in the beginning, he said, look for the light, listen for the sound. Yes, okay, so you have these twin aspects. And really, the true reality of the isness is silence. There is, you cannot even consider it. But these, just like us, when we're silent, then all of a sudden we voice something. But the light aspect was not the real light. It was a reflection. It was the knowledge. You were first to get the knowledge so that you can proceed and, be able to recognize in creation first where you are. You first have to recognize where you are, and then from there, you learn to see more. But Paul defined the different levels, okay? But altogether, the recognition wasn't there because there was really no true comparison. It was just ideas about these things. And this is where, many of these people that were back there and close to that or whatever, and I knew a lot of them because I was a higher initiator in those days. Well, they're still there. where is their awareness? What are they seeing? You see, they're still living in ideas, and especially when they hit the higher initiations, you know, this is, you become very emotionally attached to these ideas. This is where Joni created the threat. Everything comes from Joni, not Harry. Harry's the puppet. Everybody thinks it comes from Harry. Don't come from Harry. It comes from Joni. She's the one that took over the corporation. She's the one that brought Harry in. Yeah, everybody thinks it's the other way around. No, she did it. She planned all this. She used Darwin. She used Harold. And so she decides everything that happens in that corporation. So it's very, very, but it's all okay. This is part of the adventure, so that those that can see this and these other things that people have tried, which is okay, they become a comparison. It's very, very important. And this is what people didn't have to, you know, was not available at the time. They didn't have the isness. They had the God idea. It was an idea. This was like when we were young, we were kids and we played with toys and stuff like this. These are kind of the toys that we had. And it's okay. We had to come through that because we've come through millions of lifetimes to get here. And each lifetime goes very fast. Ask Sandy here or you know, Mike or anybody else that's been around a long time. Hey, it's snap of the fingers, it's gone. And you have a few more moments. Well, myself, I don't see the time factor at all. And, you know, at the time, Paul said, well, it's 5 years for the, you know, me to have the rod of power here or whatever, and that's it, whatever. Well, that was Paul's decision, and that was Paul's time, because Paul was actually to leave, but there were forces that didn't want him here. So there's a lot more to that story. I gave little hints in Book 9. And there's a lot more to it. This part of the adventure. So as we go along, we'll get to that. But right now, the world is on fire. And because we're here, because I'm here, and they don't like it, and they'll burn the whole place up if they have to. So again, and it's interesting, we're going into 5G. And I changed the levels years ago. Actually, in 2001, I started changing the levels at that time. And because I decided it must be decided somewhere, the is and the boys agreed. So the 5th level of the soul plane became the 7th level, the new universes, etc. And you know, it's interesting, we're going into 5G because then the 5th level, which is really the etheric, is the unconscious level. So here we're going into 5G, and yes, everybody's going into the unconscious mode even more so. This is how they tap, line, and trap everybody. And I saw some videos of so-called entertainers, some of the movie stars, or etc., and they're into this 5th dimensional thing or whatever, and that's the unconscious area to be controlled by. They think it's really a groovy whatever, but it's not at all. Again, everything here is deception and marketing ploy. So people here are very lucky to know most people will be taken out with it and into future lifetimes and more robotized. But again, anything can happen because we have free will here. And also as people come up, many people saying, well, why doesn't I got a chat the other day on Facebook. I'm throwing everything in here about, well, why doesn't the is take care of the Kalam God or whatever? And I, in a simple way with not too many words, because I don't want to just sit there and write dialogue, I simply said this is not the idea. Okay, you're thinking in the God term idea, the God battling the devil, okay, which is all a mock-up because they're both the same thing. Anybody see the movie with Al Pacino, The Devil's Advocate? That's not the devil, that's God. Okay, they're both the same. So Al Pacino actually played God. He didn't play the devil, which people thought. So everything's kind of funny and reversed and reflective in creation here. And the movies are a very good demonstration of what's going on. So anybody see the movie Geostorm last year? Well, gee, that's a hint, isn't it? We're living it. All the weather is controlled in the world. That's why it's very hot everywhere right now, and all the fires, etc., because of depopulation and what have you. And, you know, this is what people are deciding. So we're here to present something wonderful. And these references that I create, these words, they're very important because they refer to the all is. They do not refer to anything else. When you look at common language and you look at words, and when Val here went to college this year and we did all this stuff with Lila, etc., you know, I showed Val how to pay attention to the words that these people say. And so as Val was listening to the words and dealing with the different deans and all the funny stuff that we went through, he started to see, you know, you start to listen to the words, and all of a sudden with these so-called professional people, they don't make sense of anything. They really don't. They just say a lot of words. But if you just kind of blend it all together, you're thinking that, well, whatever they're saying is official, so it must be okay. This is what people do. They stay unconscious. They don't consciously recognize. All the years that I was out there, over 30 years doing public lectures from 1970 to 2001, I was very adamant, and even in colleges and whatever, doing this because it was my adventure. I really learned to listen to others, and especially to myself, as I was talking, and the words that I was saying. Not just saying words, okay? Not just marketing ideas or making things sound good, but being specific, etc. And so my focus was always on this invisible part. Not until my time came was I able to, present this, because respectfully, I just went along with the game. It didn't matter, etc. Let them say everything they want to say. Let them demonstrate themselves, which they have. And so many of you have come through this and other things and through the system. It's all okay. Everything that we've come through is okay. And it's no longer, like even Paul defined it as, oh, this is the cal and this is the ek and whatever. You know, you define these things in this way. And even when he wrote Herbs, the Magic Healers, he did the same thing. No, it's choice. That's all it is. It's choice. And everything that you've experienced is okay. And you can take anything, just like an old can, an old beer can or a soda can, and you can make solar panels out of it. You can transform anything. So it's all just a block of clay, and we transform it. And this is what we're doing. And so with all the groups that I write, I have fun with these, because I take a subject and then I show different sides of it, and it can all be transformed, because, yes, it's good to have the experience of it, because that's why we're here. And I would hear sometimes people say, well, I came through the corporation and I see it as a big mistake. And I would tell them, no, you made no mistakes. It was fine, because you're here now. This is what's so cool about the isness. It already is. Everything is clear now. It's already perfect, wonderful, like the sun shining. And as you learn to just be now, you see all the options you have. These things become like tools to you. These things simply become options and references to now decide to create something that's a benefit and makes sense to what's going on right now in the world. And so this is the projects and other things. People want to keep busy. We all do. We don't want to just sit around and meditate and whatever. That becomes passive. It's an active thing to have fun and create and whatever. And so I wrote a group here last week. It's called The Real Universal Position. Okay, that supersedes the community idea. I really don't want to use that anymore. And it's very, very real. And as people learn to focus and recognize what's going on, little by little, this is happening here. They're bringing it through. It's huge. It's never happened in creation before, but I decided it to be so. And so the boys and life itself is backing me. This is very, very important, because this is what will offset a lot of the agreement, not changing anything, but will offset the agreement. People will start to see this, like the Vessel Project. When they see the Vessel Project, it's like, oh, you know what? I don't want to go to college. I want a real purpose. With the new presentation and the worldwide educators, and better understand the all-natural environment supporting me. We have a real purpose, a lot better than a career. So all these words that I've put together, real guidance, real education, etc. If I just use the word education, what are people going to think? High school and college, etc. these things that the world controllers have created, so everybody becomes robotized at their job and happy that they have benefits and et cetera. So eventually they can be on pharmaceuticals and have a good time in the hospital, et cetera, because that's where it all leads. That's all definitely where it leads. That's why they got all these hospitals and pharmaceuticals, et cetera. They're just ready for everybody. And most people think, well, I'm young and I won't need that, et cetera. That's where it's all heading. All of it heads towards that. And most people with their jobs, their 9-to-5 jobs, it's all conditioning and indoctrination to support the world controllers and to obey. And it's a choice. So we're providing a new choice. That's all. It's choice. Everything breaks down to choice, and you can be now. You don't have to carry the past. Just see it as a reference, as what you've gone through. We've all done everything. And so the new references are part of the real cure for all, because it gives you a better understanding through your 5 bodies. You must learn to see these 5 bodies and how they operate first. You must go through your personal self first. It's not just having a idea like in the corporation, whatever, where you're a member, you sign up, and then you just go back to your personal life. That comes first. The real risk takers put the all is first, put life first. And yes, you do have a personal life. But once you put the whole of life first, your real guidance and the whole of life, especially the whole of life, the isness, you're going to see the difference within yourself. And eventually you're just going to want to walk away from your personal life altogether, because you're going to see you don't need it. Just like the butterfly, was the caterpillar, and it don't need the cocoon anymore. It was a little comfy zone. But once it got out, it's like, you know what? I don't need that cocoon anymore. You see? It leaves it behind. And that's your real awareness. You decide how you're going to do this. Life cannot decide. The boys cannot decide. They can give you all the experiences and whatever. But if you don't recognize them, okay, you don't. So what comes first? The isness or your personal self? Personal self will always be there, just like a book on a shelf. And this is where in book 2, when I was having experiences with Heather, who was my girlfriend for almost 30 years while I was married, when we were ready to go into the 7th level, she was afraid. Not of that. She's wonderful. She was a wonderful being. But she was afraid she would lose her relationships. And kind of like Ava, when we first met, and we were doing things on Facebook, she thought, I'm going to lose all my friends. Well, she realized after a while they weren't her friends. They were just ideas on Facebook. But Heather decided to go back. She made a choice. I didn't try to talk her out of it. She made a choice. Wonderful person, and there's a lot of good people, but they make choices. They want to be with religion. They want to follow God. They want to do whatever. They want to stay with their family, whatever, which you've been for endless lifetimes. You want to keep going? Well, that's a choice. So when you figure out how to put life first, and then you are what you are, you're, like Paul said, the experiencer. We are the experiencer of life. And this is where real humility comes in. And I've respelled it. It's humility. Humility, not humility, but humility. And the you is the is. And so it's become very interesting. So I see that the elites try to copy what I'm doing, but it's a kind of a bad reflection. But so this is where I've added the 3. It's kind of like the 111, which is the heading in the right direction. I've added the 3 basically S's or L's, like to all or etc. Simply because if they want to try to play catch up, well, then I'm just going to go a step further, and I really don't see them doing the same thing with 3 letters in a row. Okay, so now they can define me as just way off the charts, which is fine, which we are. We are uniquely wonderful, and when I created Wonderful Worldwide Educators, it was first Worldwide Educators, but we really are wonderful. We are presenting something very, very wonderful. And more so over the years, the title that I picked, Duane the Great Writer, it has a real meaning, and that is it's not the personal meaning. No, it's just something that I use. But what I'm writing is great. It is. It's great. It's wonderful. It's real. It's so cool. And we have the best references. But again, each person has to take the time to recognize this, because these references I've created, they have a real connection to the isness, because life recognizes it, life backs it, the boys back it. That's the difference. Someone can take the exact words that I'm writing. Joni will do it. She's using my words. The cabal is using my words, etc., my phrases and how I say it. Incorrect English, most part. Many people have tried to correct my English. Well, I write it as I see it, right or wrong. And I'm not saying I'm right. I just write it as I see it. And whether it's the nouns and the verbs and whatever are right in place, I don't know. I'm not concerned about that. I didn't do good in English in school because it was really boring to me. But it's not about that. The language and the legal system have been set up a particular way to keep people straitjacket literalized. And that's fine if that's what you want. And again, it's a reference. That's a book on a shelf. And we'll use that like Mike was talking about. That's fine. We'll use it for certain things. But it does not supersede anything we're doing with the new presentation, because the new presentation is a reference to the isness. And again, the secret of life is really learning to, in some way, recognize this reality, and right now recognize the references, and to put it first, not the references, but the reality life is. Let it be first, and you have fun just being with it. And I use the term standing real. I like that term. So it's better than the old term working with God. Okay. See, and exactly that's what everybody's doing. They are co-workers or working with God. Well, we all started in the drudgery position, but my view is to see this possibility, but it's more than that. I'm providing the possibility, but the reality of it being so that each person can stand in it here, now, real, here and now, without restrictions, and we no longer have to agree or cater to the systems, and it's okay. And so again, many of these people will come around. So we went through our process, and we're going through it, etc. So the support factor is very important. This is where we support each other, not just to where all the membership supports one person and they take all the goods and everybody else struggles at their 9-to-5 job to support. No, that's not it. Everybody supports everybody. Everybody contributes. And this is what makes it work. This is a demonstration that the boys do. They all support each other, and they stand real in the isness because they recognize it. This becomes the difference. It's more than just an idea. So if the idea doesn't provide what it should, then it doesn't. It's just that simple. And so it should, and it shouldn't be one idea to the other. So Darwin and Harold stole Paul's titles. That's an idea. So the memberships are relating to another idea is all they're relating to, not the true reality life is. And also they got the God idea stuck with them, and now worshiping in prayer. They've got all these ideas. Now you see how the frequencies are all screwed up. Because again, that's what Joni wants, just like Wi-Fi and mind control. They got everybody screwed up. Yes, with all these ideas upon ideas that equal nothing. And the biggest thing is that, yeah, the ideas seem cool or, sacred or whatever, but life is not backing them. The boys are not backing them. Now the boys see what's going on through all of creation, and they can see who is ready or not. So it doesn't matter where that individual is, they will try and contact, or they will create situations to where the individual can go through the steps to where they can wake up. So there's many ways to do it. So I'm here now. This is the position. This the new wave is, etc. And for the earth and through all of creation, but at the same time, someone in the corporation or somewhere else or in the government or wherever, they can wake up too. And so the boys will usually lead them to what I'm doing and what we're presenting, so they can get a better definition, because they got that literal side. You need to have all the parts, you see, but there's a point where you need to read between the lines, and this is even more than that. You've really got to learn to see it, and intuitively, and then gain that insight, gain some kind of insight from that intuition. In other words, I've got this hunch about something. It's the old saying, gut feeling, whatever. I don't know where that came from, heartburn or what have you. But anyhow, so it's really your intuition. And then from that, how can you put together some insight to eventually recognize your real awareness? And then the next step is in some way to start to recognize the all is. So I give the hint to also, one of the best ways I see is to start to really recognize the isness, and not to take it for granted at all. I never do. I never consider that, I know this. No. You see, that's an idea that you've put up really as a block. It's like, I know this, I know what the is. No, I don't. No one can ever know the is, because it's endless and you cannot consider it. But you can learn to see it, you see. And so really see it, more so than any seer, etc. So the idea would be that basically the first step, learn to recognize what the sun is demonstrating. And so this is a new look at the sun, isn't it? We're so lucky we have a sun here. We could be on a dark world, and just like the caveman, and then it would be hard to get this new message out to people. But we're not, fortunately. We still have the sun there. They're trying to block it out. So we have time. But again, the clock is ticking because we have free will. All right? Life does not decide what we are to do. Life is already what it is. Again, learn to understand this in every which way you can. You make the choice, how you will see it, how you stand real with it, how you define it, how you demonstrate yourself, etc. You decide that. So that's what these words will just say are the isness, and whatever else I create, real guidance, and all these things, okay, they are a reference to, the new wave is a reference to, Duane Ava is a reference to the isness. Duane, the great writer, it's a reference to the isness. It's not me. There is no me. I'm just here doing what I'm doing. The whole of life is. This is the best part, and it's all now. When you learn to really be this nowness, yes, you have the best position, and then everything is available. Now you can play in creation, and let's do something wonderful. Let's show the world who we are. Let's demonstrate something wonderful. So I suggest that because of all the images, and anybody can create them, to grab our images, go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you want to do, or any of these other places. We like Facebook, etc. And just share the images. That's all. Just share the images. Millions of people see it. And, Facebook and YouTube and all these, or make your own videos or whatever. Kelsey's doing this. Get with Kelsey. Just present this to the world, because the world really wants this. They're suffering. They don't see their agreements and how they're agreeing to the demise. They're looking up at the sky, and maybe they see the laser planes or whatever. They don't know what to do. It's like, what can we do? It's really all about agreement. It's not about retaliating. There's no violence involved. It's about awareness. Getting them around to where they start to recognize who they are, and giving up that agreement, because the world controllers need that agreement. Those pilots up there, once they realize what's going on, they'll stop agreeing to fly those planes. We don't have to beat them up. We just let them know that they can make a better choice. But also, they're responsible. They have to meet all of that. And so it's a very interesting situation we're in right now. And just like all the movies we've seen, all the battles and combat, here it is. You're in the middle of it. And most people will want to pretend they're still in La La Land, thinking that, the government will take care of this. It's the government that's doing it. It's human farming. So again, we constantly reiterate these things. I know I've talked about them many times. But again, just like what Charles brought up, I could keep talking forever, but I'll stop here. And that is that, yes, the new references are very important, and I don't expect people to understand them. Heck, when I speak common language English, they don't even understand what I'm saying. Actually, it's so funny, as we've done the Skypes, most of the foreigners better understand because they see it within themselves. It's not the words alone, that's the literal side, but they learn to see it, and they know that there's something going on there. So they want to take the risk, and they do the new you, and they start having experiences. And that better defines it for them. Then they start to see the relationship of how these things fit together, because what I'm writing is something that can be presented to the world so that they better understand in their literal sense to start off with. So there's the short of it.